So we're talking about individual tax filing, and there are several different types of taxes that we pay, but two of the most popular taxes that we pay annually are the income tax and the property tax. Obviously, we do pay as part of our tax bill, we pay for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We, as we spend money, we also pay sales tax. But obviously, different states have different rules. Some states don't have sales tax. I live in Louisiana, so we have sales tax. Some states don't have income tax. Again, I live in Louisiana and we have income tax. But generally, what we need to file for are the taxes for income and the property. So, who files for taxes? With respect to the income tax, everyone who actually has any earnings in the United States or who is a US citizen or a green card holder has to pay and file for taxes. So, I have to explain this though, because think of it this way: if you live in the US, whoever you are, regardless of your citizenship, and you have any earnings, you are liable to pay taxes and you have to file for taxes. If you are a US citizen or a green card holder and you are in the US, or you're not even in the US, you are outside of the US, you live in some other country, but you are a US citizen or a green card holder, US has a global tax. Any income that you have, even outside of the US, goes towards this explanation, this reasoning that you have to pay taxes to the US. Some people think that since you actually earn money in some other country, you pay taxes in that country, so you don't have to pay taxes in the US. That's not right. Wherever you actually earn money, you have to pay taxes to the US, as long as you are a US citizen or a green card holder. But even if you're not a citizen, say you are an immigrant, and or you are a student and you have earnings in the US and you are in the US, then you still have to pay taxes to the US government. So everyone who has any earnings must file a tax return, and that's a very broad and general um, description. Obviously, say you live in Spain and there's a 45% income tax in Spain, and you already pay taxes, your income tax in Spain. You file for your taxes in the US, but you may not have to pay anything to the US. US just wants to know how much income you generated, how much taxes that you paid, and if there is any excess that you need to pay to the US, then you do. But with a 45% taxes, income tax that you pay in Spain, you wouldn't have to pay. More than likely, you wouldn't have to pay taxes in the US. But again, each individual case is different, so you have to refer to specific agreements between countries to go into the detail. However, to long story short, anybody who lives in the U.S. Has to pay taxes, and all U.S. citizens and green card holders who live in the U.S. or who doesn't even live in the U.S. but has earnings has to file for taxes. Now, property tax is very specific. Everyone who owns a property pays a property tax. Property taxes are local. We actually pay them to the city, the parish, or the county, and they are specific to the area. And it's different. Like in Louisiana, we pay somewhere around 1%. In New Jersey, it's about 2%. In Connecticut, it's about 2 to 3%. In California, you're looking at 2 to 3%. In Texas, some areas you actually pay as high as 3%. Some areas you pay as low as 1%. There are obviously exceptions to everything, to property taxes. Like, for instance, there is something called a homestead. Like in my case, for instance, in Louisiana, there is a Homestead Act which exempts a portion of the value of the house from taxes. I think it was $75,000, but I may be wrong on that one. But every state has a similar homestead, and it actually changes. It also changes every year. It also changes from state to state, parish to parish, county to county. Um, so you may want to check into that. But it also, like for instance, when I bought my home, I didn't know about this, and then 2, 3 years down the road, my neighbor told me, and then I found out, and I went to the parish tax uh, place, and I asked them if they could, you know, retroactively help me out with it, and they did. So the property tax has exemptions and exceptions, and you need to look into see if you qualify for any of them. Similarly, with income tax, there is a lot of exceptions and exemptions that everybody qualifies. Like for instance, there's a some states have minimum living standards. Some states and federally, we also have some healthcare exemptions. There's a mortgage interest exemption. Even if you don't have a mortgage, there is a mortgage interest exemption. There's a child credit exemption. So there's a whole bunch of exemptions and exceptions that's specific to every individual. So this video and this class is not where we go into that much detail. So you should know that if um, you live in the U.S., you are required to file for taxes if you have any earnings. And in a lot of the cases, even if you don't earn anything, you should still file it just so that you would have a record at the IRS, and then you tell them that you didn't earn a penny. It doesn't cost you anything to file. We'll talk about it in a minute. So who collects taxes? Federally Internal Revenue Service, IRS for short, collects taxes, and we need to file with them. In fact, what happens is if you're earning a paycheck, then your employer actually pays for your taxes with each paycheck that you receive. So what happens is, say you earn $100 every paycheck, a few dollars of that 100 will be paid to the IRS on your behalf with every paycheck. So think of it as if you have an account with the IRS. The money actually goes into that account. That's your tax. And at the end of the year, you basically have a balance in the account. And then the following year, first few months, tax season, we're going to talk about it in a minute, you file your tax return and tell them this is how much money I made and this is how much taxes I supposed to pay. Now, remember, with each paycheck, you actually paid, or your employer paid on your behalf and accumulated a sum, right? So let's say that you actually have a few $1,000s there. And then you filed your return, and in your return, based on all those exemptions and exceptions that you have, you calculated that you have to pay X amount. Now, if you paid more than you're supposed to, you get a refund. If you paid less than you're supposed to, then you actually pay. So the Federally Internal Revenue Service is the agency who collects taxes and who enforces the tax laws. Each state has its own tax agency. Some states don't have an income tax, but that doesn't mean they don't have a tax agency. If the states don't collect taxes, then they don't have income. So each state has its own tax agency. Um, and with respect to property taxes, we obviously have city, county, and parish. Um, I think parish is only for Louisiana. All others call it county. Um, they have their own tax um, place. It's in the municipal building, and you usually receive a bill from the sheriff's office that says your property value assessment, and then it basically tells you how much you need to pay as a property tax, and then you have to pay it by the end of December of each year. If you have a mortgage, your mortgage company will collect it. We talked about it in previous weeks. Will collect part of your mortgage payment into an escrow account and pay that property tax on your behalf. But it is your responsibility. So if the mortgage company doesn't pay it or they're delayed, things happen. It's your responsibility to check to make sure that your property tax is paid. If it is not, then you could get into trouble. So much so that the parish could actually repossess your house, sell it, and stuff like that. So it could get messy. It's in your best interest to check to make sure that your property taxes are paid on time without delay. So when do we pay them? Well, we pay them every year. IRS will announce the tax season. They usually announce it first few weeks of January, and the annual tax season usually starts with mid-January and ends usually early April or mid-April. But the trick with this is that your employer is supposed to give you a paycheck, um, like a tax document called W-2, that basically says how much money you have earned and how much taxes your employer paid on your behalf. Now, on that W-2, it will include the federal and state, Medicare, Medicaid, and all of that, Social Security. And unless you have that, you can't file for taxes. So you need to wait for that W-2. Most businesses will actually give it to you as early as they can. But that usually is the holdup. Um, I usually receive it the first couple of weeks of February, and by that time, I'm usually done filing. Property taxes are usually paid by the end of December. I live in Louisiana, and in our parish, we are encouraged to pay by mid-December, but I think the deadline is the end of December. So, how do we file for federal income taxes? Now, remember, what we're doing is we're basically filing a return, right? In that tax return, the form, we're saying that this is how much money we made. These are our exemptions, and these are our exceptions, and based on that form, we actually have a taxable income, and how much taxes we're supposed to pay. It's a very self-explanatory form, um, which usually is 1040, is the IRS form 1040. IRS has a form number for every form, which is quite convenient. So then you know which form you need to fill out. There are different kinds of 1040s. When I was a student, I used to fill out 1040 easy, as in easy, and it really guides you through, how much money you made, W-2 box number one, write it here, add it here, and so on and so forth. And then you basically know how much you already paid because it says it on your W-2. The employer provided you that form, and then you know if you're getting a refund check or if you actually owe IRS. So you can download the form, fill it out, and mail it by yourself. It really is not that hard. And IRS is very, very helpful. They have videos, they have step-by-step explanations. I mean, it just can't be any easier. You can also use an e-file system that IRS started actually just this year. It's very convenient. It's free, and it guides you through. I mean, it's really, really easy. You can use a commercial tax service such as TurboTax or H&R Block. These are very popular. There are several of them. Just know that you're actually giving them your private and potentially um, you know all your private information, your social security number, your income, your spouse's social security number, your kid's social security number, everything you're providing to them. So you need to be very, very picky about which company you're going to be working with. Um, it's it's awful lot of security issue that goes on. So I mean, I wrote these, but use them at your own risk, simply because you are giving them every information that you have that is as risky as it can be. However, it is, you need to file somehow, and downloading it, the form, filling it out, and mailing it. This actually takes awful lot of time. So, especially during the COVID year, for instance, they say there's a delay of up to 3 to 6 months. With an e-file, it's immediate. With the commercial tax services, you can also use These commercial tax services pay a few dollars extra, and then you could e-file, and that's also immediate. Like as in same, like in a few minutes, it says your income return has been accepted. Sometimes few hours, sometimes a day. You can also pay an accountant to file your taxes, or you could pay a certified public um, accountant to file for your tax return. So, certified public accountant is you basically have to graduate from an accounting program uh, and have to take X amount of credits, and then you take a test, and then you have a license. Not everybody has to be a CPA to be an accountant, and any accountant actually can file for your taxes. Um, but a CPA obviously is certified, and they know what they're doing, and therefore they're a little bit more, well, whole lot more knowledgeable, I would say. But then again, a new CPA, very well experienced accountant. So the idea with asking for help to file your taxes, while it's actually great, just keep in mind that you're still giving them all your financial information, including your social security number, including your bank accounts, everything, every money that you earned, every spending that you had, all your tax information that's as private as it can be, you're actually giving it to a person. So, and they also can make mistakes, and you're liable for their mistakes. So be careful about who you trust, and I file my own taxes. Usually, I mean, it's just really not that difficult, especially with a 1040. You could choose itemized or take a deduction, but don't want to go into too much detail. But the IRS form 1040 has explanations. It will actually explain to you. Um, Usually, filing the e-file with the IRS system is quite convenient, and it's free. So how do you file for state income taxes? Well, each state is different. You can still download the forms, fill it out, and then mail it. But the states are not as intuitive as the federal 1040 EZ. They're still easy. It's just not as intuitive as the federal income tax. And they don't, especially in the case of Louisiana, for instance, we don't have an e-file system yet. And I'm sure they're working on it, and they're fantastic, by the way. I mean, they're very helpful. You call them, you ask them questions, and they will be very, very helpful. Um, but there's a nice thing about using commercial tax services, such as TurboTax or H&R Block. The idea is once you actually fill out your federal income tax with these commercial tax services, you can actually use the same information to file for your federal and the state at the same time. So it saves a whole lot of time. So you don't have to fill out separate forms um, by yourself. The software will do it for you automatically, having you fill out information once, then using that information, the software will fill out different forms from different states. You can still pay an accountant to file your state tax return, and you can pay a CPA to file your state tax return. So, what happens if you don't file for taxes? Well, tax evasion is a serious criminal offense. Don't think that they won't come after you; they will. And it's cheating. It's not nice. I mean, the whole system of government actually relies on income, and if people start evading their taxes, then other people will have to pay for them. Why would I pay your taxes, right? So the tax evasion is a serious criminal offense, and it should be. Some famous tax evasion cases: Al Capone, they couldn't get him for all the crimes that he committed. They got him for tax evasion. And Wesley Snipes, uh, there was I think, seven-figure tax bill that he had to pay because he actually had a case. Martha Stewart, it's very, very popular court case. And then Willie Nelson. I mean, these are some of the ones that I actually could remember recently. Um, so tax evasion is not something that we kid about. This is a serious matter. If you're earning even a few dollars, you should file for taxes. Again, if you're earning a few dollars, your tax return will take you no more than 10 minutes once a year, and the IRS makes it so easy. E-file, it just couldn't be easier. So, are we paying too much taxes in the US? So, I just chose some of the examples. And across countries, Europe pays really high tax rates. Internationally, actually, the tax rates are significantly high. In Finland, for instance, the tax rate is close to 57%. So every $100 that you make, $57 that you actually pay in taxes. In Austria, 55%, France and Germany, 45%. And most European countries pay somewhere around 40% or more. And in the US of A, we actually pay on average 14.6%. And this is because we have a lot of exemptions, like childcare, mortgage interest, healthcare, minimum living, and this and that. I mean, by the time after you get all those exemptions, your income, your taxable income is quite minimal for a lot of people, for most of us. So we end up paying approximately, on average, about 14.6% taxes. And compared to some other countries, this is very, very little. So it is our obligation, and we pay this every year. And that's all I have for tonight for this subject. Obviously, this is a very lengthy discussion and conversation, but this is just an introduction as to what we do, how we actually file for taxes, when do we file for taxes, and how do we actually file for taxes. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.